Free still.
Still free.
2, 1. And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha. Welcome everyone to this evening's FBS Chat. Our special guest is Brian Jennings. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm a bit awestruck being here.
And two amazing co-hosts. I think, Steve, this is your first time co-hosting.
It is.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving in to the bit of the arm twisting. I know that Aisha likes to twist a few arms, so thank you for that. And Gil, our adopted grandparent from Columbus, Ohio, who's done a few of these before. So thank you, Gil, for joining us.
It's tough work, but somebody's got to do it.
So Brian, I'm always fascinated how your what was your first introduction to solution focused approach, and how was that, and where was it?
Okay, I've been I teach philosophy, ethics, and theology in a faith-based university college in Ghana, in Accra, and we needed to get accreditation. And at that time, we were looking at the University of Wales. And since I was the resident Brit on the faculty, I sort of it fell into my lap to be the quality assurance officer who was going to do the liaison with the University of Wales so that we could get our validation. And so that role began to develop, and it became rather acute when the University of Wales went into crisis and began to lay all their problems on us. So then we had to find alternative validation or accreditation and take a lot more responsibility of things for ourselves. But hey, I'm an ethics scholar. I do virtue ethics. I don't do quality, which meant then I was plunged into a search for resources. So I went and took a MA in higher education, and then began desperately searching for all the quality methods to use in higher education. And I found a book by a guy called Ed Salis on total quality management in education. And this was material that he was applying to his college in Jersey. And he had an experience similar to ours, that the framework for quality assurance and FE suddenly changed. And being in the Channel Islands, he got left out. So he had to find his own framework. And at that time, he was working with the University of Lancaster, who were using solution focus coaching. And so I read this paper that he did on solution focus leadership coaching, on how he was building his staff using solution focus. I thought, wow, this is great. You don't have to deal with all the problems after all, because so much of quality assurance means that you have to identify the problem and analyze its root causes. And so you have to dig and dig and dig down to the very bottom and find out who or what is responsible, and some people really enjoy this process. You can really do some real nice victimizing, but this wasn't proving productive to us. And so I then began to introduce a process in which we did teamwork to analyze our challenges, because you have to start with the problems in some form, but I was reframing them as challenges. And then, how are you going to address those challenges? and what, looking back at your past achievements, could you bring to address these new ones, and move on. And I felt that was quite productive. But see, the trouble was, when you first encounter solution focus, you can get a bit solution forced, so you get carried away with your own momentum, as being the solution champion, and you don't necessarily take everyone with you. So some greater emotional intelligence would have been very, very helpful at the time. Because people get very attached to their problems. For some strange reason, they become very precious. However, I do remember a really productive session, and I was working with the maintenance crew, and they were talking about the problem of the overhanging branches that were actually filling up all the gutters and stopping the water flow. So I said, so is there one thing that would be helpful? He says, yeah, we need to get a new chainsaw. Okay, so what can you take to the finance department to persuade them to buy you a new chainsaw? And what it was is that it wasn't even necessary to buy a new chainsaw. It was just some modest investment to fix the one they already had. And a few days later, I heard the sound of a chainsaw, and I thought, great. And so that's one that stays in my mind. And there were some other small movements on the way, but it was a very unfamiliar approach for people. And I think there were two new things that needed to be learnt: looking for solutions to challenges rather than just analysing the problems, but also coming up with the solutions yourself, rather than having someone else in authority tell you what to do, because I'm sure, as Gil will remember, that academic institutions can be very, very conservative and top down. And I was trying to promote a bottom up strategy, and I did have a chance to do it again, with the Association of Commonwealth Universities, and this was the strangest thing. I was on the mailing list for the Staff and Educational Development Association, which is linked to the Association of Commonwealth Universities. This is an association of all of the universities in the British Commonwealth of Nations, and they had an administrative staff side to them, and they'd had a conference in which they'd spoken with one of the assistant general secretaries about, can you not do something for the administrators? And so he had taken this away, and he had made a post on the CEDA on the CEDA webmail, and put out some basic questions. And I just shared what I did and the kinds of challenges I faced and the sorts of things that needed to be done for administrators. And this must have been, this was end of 2014, and I put it out in December, and then just left it hanging there. I didn't hear anything. I thought, well, that didn't achieve anything. And then in February, I got this email saying, "Oh, would you be interested in doing this?" Oh, yes, absolutely. I got so excited, I think I crashed my computer with trying to get the reply out. But anyway, so what happened then is that I started a process with a colleague, Ian Willis, and because I had sort of, because the solution focused process in my institution had been partially successful and not wholly successful, I was kind of wondering, does this really work? And can I move forward with it? And we looked at one thing, and we looked at another, and then finally I thought, hey, and as we began to look at the ways that we could, we both agreed that, see, there's lots of workshops that are, you come in, you sit down in the workshop, someone just talks at you for 4 days, you take your certificate of participation and off you go. And it's a waste of everybody's time, except of course, if you got to go to a new place and you made all sorts of new friends and you had some nice social entertainment on the side, but otherwise not really good for much learning. And then we began to talk about doing a small change project. And I kind of thinking, but this is essentially what I was trying to get my guys to do. I was trying to get them to do small change projects. I already have the process, because what I did, it was basically a solution focused change process based around the Oscar model from Jackson and Lukurgo's excellent book. And I just used that and framed a small change process around it. So that's what we did. In the mornings, my colleague Ian Willis talked about how administrators fit into the mission of the university. And then in the afternoons, I was working with them on, okay, how can you develop a small change project that will have an impact on student teaching and learning, even if it's indirect. We had to do it that way because the awarding agency, CEDA, was really interested on things that impacted on student learning. And so we had some really interesting things. The first project was in London at the School for African and Oriental Studies, and and in that first one we had people from all over the continent of Africa, and we had one guy from University of Ghana, I remember, and we actually did a write-up on his work that he was concerned with student accommodation. And the fact that so many students were ending up in poor accommodation in Cape Coast, that then was affecting their studies. And so he then began to work with the student accommodation services, but also more importantly with the with the Students Association, and they developed. They came out with an agreed process for approving landlords, and this was what a landlord had to do to get on the approved landlords list for Cape Coast University. And the accommodation officer went and looked and checked it, and then along with the student reps. And so this was in a list of landlords that was approved by the Student Association and the Accommodation Office that was then given to students who were coming to Cape Coast to study. And it was all round winners, and so that was a really important achievement. There was we did a second, and then we had a couple of other administrators who saw that there was no teaching and learning workshops taking place in their university, so they organised the teaching and learning workshops for their staff. In a later, we did another.
It's all right, Brian. Keep going. Well, actually, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, shall we let one of the co-hosts jump in
I'm
and
just
maybe?
rolling on. I'm just.
You're not. It's all fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm positively curious about so many different things. So should we go to Steve and then Gil?
Yeah.
You're doing a great job, Brian. Our job easy.
Sorry?
It makes our job easy as co-host.
Oh yeah.
I think the thing I'm curious about, Brian, is this when you're working with organisations and teams, the kind of organisational approach. Do you notice any kind of beneficial side effects in terms of people's engagement with work, the mental health, job satisfaction, things like that?
Yeah, one of the sessions that we did is we did a session on career development, and so we used the solution focused conversation for that. So where do you want to be in your career in 5 years from now? And so where are you now? What if you look at the past, what are the learning and professional achievements from your past that are going to help you to get towards that particular goal? So on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 you're not anywhere near it at all, and 10 you're there, where are you? And so they were able to evaluate their particular situation. And then we went to the small steps. So if you are to get to your goal, given where you are now, what are the next 4 small steps that you need to take that would enable you to move towards your career goal? So that was very positive. Another thing that we used, which some of you might be familiar with, was positive gossip. And we had a session with all of them together, and then we just got them into groups. And so, okay, this was towards the middle, towards the end. You've been together all this time. What are the positive things that you've noticed about each other? And of course, the person who's being gossiped about just has to sit there and hear all of these nice things said about themselves. And again, in the university world, never mind the academia, but also in the administrative world, there's such a lot of negative stuff that goes round that people hear about themselves. So just to have this positive gossip and to hear all the affirmative things that people are saying about them, was really great. And that did boost people's confidence. See, sadly, there were only 2 iterations of this. And out of both, we heard news of promotions, partly because of the small change projects that people had done, which had to be cross-functional, and partly because of the kind of lift in confidence that people have had through participating in the workshop.
Phenomenal.
Brian,
beneficial side effects. Sorry, Gil.
Okay, no, go ahead. With your follow-up question, Steve, go ahead.
No, it's just like that, an observation about beneficial side effects. I think it's one of those things we need to pick up and notice, maybe.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. We need to notice it. Now, myself, I wanted to go back and follow up Joe's original question about how you got into solution focus, Brian, and you had said something about being influenced by someone who had written something on solution focus leadership coaching from University of Lancaster.
He was in a project that was supported by the University of Lancaster. Ed Salis was a principal of a further education college on the Isle of Jersey, which is a Channel island. And so this would have been the only institution for post-secondary education on that island. And they were in a partnership with the University of Plymouth, I think, to offer distance education. But he really was, he really was there by himself. And so, and he had done all the conventional things to build quality. And usually the way that quality processes work, as you will know from maybe your experience with accreditation associations in the US, is that an external body comes in and approves you. But for Ed Salis, there was no longer any external body that would come in and approve him. So he had to find ways to build, to continue to build approval within his own context. So what do you do? So the only thing that you can do is to have something that helps you always to raise the bar of your own horizon of achievements and solution focus, with the future perfect. Because, of course, the future perfect is always a moving bar. The further you go, the more there is that you can see you can achieve. So this was, the only other thing he could have done would have been appreciative inquiry.
You're right.
So for him, this was an ideal tool. How do I continue to build the caliber of my leadership? And since at that point, the University of Wales has sort of crumbled away, and we needed to reframe our quality. And this, to me, this just seemed like the ideal way to go.
So is his work your first introduction to solution focused approach?
Yes, it was. There was. I'm very interested in action learning. And there was a guy who was based, I think, in Ashcroft College, who had taken some of Iveson's early work and built it into an action learning process. And I didn't really know what solution focus was. And I looked at the process and it looked very complicated. Which maybe my colleagues, when I came out with my sort of planning document, they must have thought it was extremely complicated as well. So I didn't pick it up at the time, although I did go back and look at it. But I think Ed Salis's work was the first things that I looked at that that showed something that was actually working, and the change and the difference that it would make.
About what year was this? When you first?
This would have been
2012,
2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a historian. I'm always curious about these sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually took that.
Very future oriented.
Well, I'm with you on that, because as an ethicist, as a virtue ethicist, I'm interested in the particular kinds of virtues or character strengths that solution focus, that what kind of character do you need to be to do solution focus well, and what kind of character does doing solution focus work begin to produce and develop? But you can't separate that from the history of the practice and the kind of traditions that build up, So we're all the time talking about Steve and Inso, even those of us who have never met them, and you're kind of thrilled when you see a video of them, I remember in my when I came back to the UK on one of my periodic leaves. I'm based in Birmingham, so I went to Change Brief Therapy Birmingham to get some education in solution focused approach, and I think it was Eva Golding who, at one of the sessions, she showed a video of Steve DeShazer at work with an African American student, and it was it was amazing. His eyes were everywhere, yet nevertheless you could see that this young woman that he was working with was really engaged, and they were moving together. Anyways, so I think the formation is important to understand where we are and to understand the strengths that we have to go forward.
And that's just as Jonas Wells had asked the question. Jonas Wells has written, "I love Brian, so passionate and unique in his perspective. I know for a fact that he has some fascinating and forefront thinking, linking SF with virtual ethics. I wonder if you could talk about that, which you've touched upon."
Yes. One of the things that happens to you when you sort of go sideways into these different roles is that sometimes you lose touch with your main discipline, which for me is virtue ethics, and but I'm still passionate about solution focus. So how do I bring these together? And especially as I put aside the quality work, and I'm cutting down on my teaching so I can get back into this. I use an approach developed by the philosopher Alistair MacIntyre in his approach to virtue ethics. And his argument is that virtues are always around a particular practice, which could be artistic. It could be a life of faith, or it could be a psychotherapy practice, or a coaching practice, and around that practice will always develop a tradition which will kind of begin to embrace the key priorities of the practice. And for solution focus, that's with the group that was there in Milwaukee, and the changes that they began to make, moving away from a theoretically based psychotherapy, which focused on problems and the strategies often long term, that patients would then have to be required to engage in to resolve those problems, to something that was much more clients. And I was just reading something on this today, and it was very, very interesting that as the emphasis began to move away from the theoretical advantage of the psychotherapist, and more attention was focused, first of all, on the problems that the client was identifying and looking at that. And that, of course, was where the MII were. And then there's another shift away from the problems to what is working to help the clients achieve their goals. And I just read Kurt Visser's article on the development of, and there's a very, very interesting thing on there, that they began to do an experiment from what could be dropped from traditional therapy and it still work for an outcome for the client. And so this was really radical shift, because now, you know, the focus of the practice is, you know, what is the outcome for the client? And I thought that's, you know, I'm looking at it, and that's obviously what's going on. And when DeShazer and Miller are writing about the rumor, and they're talking about a difference between psychotherapy as a cause and as a job, you know, part of the idealist in me wants to see causes and, you know, sort of victories, you know. But they're talking about it as a job, because they're focusing on what is the outcome for the client. So they're always looking now, what is working for the client? How is the client defining their outcome and their best life? Okay. And so it's trying to empower people in their situations. And that still seemed a bit thin. But then I read an account of a workshop that was hosted by Mark McCurgo, and Gail Miller was there, Raya was there, and one or two others. And they began to talk about, you know, why are we so allergic to theory? What is the theory? And Raya comes out with this amazing statement about, you know, we're enabling the client to cooperate with reality. I kind of think, oh, wow. Yeah, so it's not just helping, you know, with these, you know, see, suddenly you have to put, because of course the systems theory is part of the legacy, and it means that we're enabling the client to engage with the system of reality. And of course, with systems theory coming from Bateson, the idea is that even one small change can change the orientation of the whole. And somebody at that meeting said, oh yes, this connects with ideas from Taoism and Buddhism. And I listened to your conversation with Owen earlier today, and he's drawing those same connections. Now, I have a theology that's called open theism, and so I do believe in a personal God, but he's left things open, and you know, will sort of enable us to bring about eventually the future that's going to be best. But there will be some strategic interventions But anyway, that's straying from the topic a little, and I'm kind of thinking, but this is the goal of the practice.
Brian, could I just ask? So, in terms of virtue, is there something with solution focus where, and I may have got this completely wrong, but are we looking at virtue in the client rather than virtue in the person hosting the conversation with them, the worker?
Okay, my primary interest is the virtue of the facilitator, and in order to facilitate a solution-focused conversation well, what kind of person do you have to be, or what kind of person do you have to learn to become? And in the process, what changes in you take place, because it's not only the client who changes in the solution-focused conversation. I think and I know that Mark McCurgo has this great thing about interaction. That it's not just that the facilitator or therapist or coach is co-creating an alternative future or reality with the client, and so the facilitator ultimately is going to come away changed from that and better able to kind of host those conversations. I watched the session with Peter Sasbo, and it's like it's all there, and he doesn't even have to ask a question to make it work.
Oh man!
He's just there as Peter, and people begin to talk about the change.
Do you know what? I just wanted to, and maybe it's not just a question for Brian, but obviously there's this idea in the medical therapeutic world that a client needs to come to terms with past events, and that if they don't, it's in their subconscious, and they can't make any forward movement without dealing with that first. And I just wondered how do we answer criticisms like that? Because there are people out there in the psychiatric world, the medical world, that will say this is too on the surface. It's not going to make lasting change. Does that make sense, Brian? I don't know if I'm.
Okay, well, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have that body of knowledge. Theologically, as a Christian, I believe that people can make changes suddenly. I believe in I believe in Damascus Road's experiences when you can suddenly be turned around completely.
Yes.
180 degrees, and that's an important part of faith for me. But in solution focused terms, the question is where do you want to go, not where do you want to stay. But anyway, I'm not
but I love.
But this is a question for Bill, I think.
No. Even just you saying where do you want to go rather than where you want to stay is such a powerful question in and of itself. Isn't it?
Well, follow that up is where do you want to go, being future focused, and then where have you been at least part of the time, that's similar to where you want to go.
That's it. Yeah.
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 And so I look at, to answer your question, at least address it, Joe. I'm not sure I answered address it. And we've had these conversations some in the past. I think we can look to neuroscience for that. So that by talking about the future and past successes and exceptions and present and getting future oriented, we're activating those neural pathways where those strengths and memories and emotions, images may have been dormant. So we activate them and then strengthen them by having further conversations about them.
Yeah. You find what you look for.
That's kind of a Reader's Digest answer to that.
Yeah.
No,
I'm always curious with everybody what other people think about you're asking that question. I'm always curious about.
Yeah, and Brian's right. This Damascus road to Damascus. I genuinely believe that there could be a one-off conversation, a one-off incident in our lives, something that happens to someone else that can make us completely do a 360 and view things in a different way and make different choices and options, without having to undig all the past, which is really subjective, because someone can tell me their past and I can make an assumption about the way they view the world or their beliefs, and how far back do you go? It just becomes endless. So we look at what is it. Aren't we just talking about what clients can do in the present and believing totally in that change can happen? Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, guys. I would just give up. If I thought my clients were prisoners to their past, what can I do?
I think Gil makes a really important point, though, because at this point in time, the conversation we're having now is based on all our previous thoughts, deeds, and experiences. So whether they be positive and they'll enrich the future, or they're negative and it's, well, how on earth did you get through that? What are your personal strengths? What were the resources that got you through that, which will inform the future? So it's a both and, isn't it? You can have, we need to discuss the trauma. Fine, I'll discuss the trauma, but I want to discuss it in terms of Friederike Banning's idea of post-traumatic success. I want to discuss it in terms of, so how did you get from that event at the age of 20 to sitting here now at the age of 30 having a conversation? And how will that be useful in the future?
To Steve, I think was influenced by Milton Erickson, who saw, Freud saw the unconscious as a seething cauldron of id impulses, and Milton Erickson saw the unconscious as containing strengths and resources. And that Damascus moment that Brian mentioned, I think what captures that the best is the work of the Mental Research Institute, where they talked about second order change. Of course, they were very much influenced by Bateson and Erickson. And then MRI influenced DeShazer and Berg and the whole team at Milwaukee.
In terms of the past, there's two other things that cross my mind. When Steve DeShazer says, if something doesn't work, stop doing it. And, there are things that people are doing, sometimes to hurt others, that they have to stop if they're to move forward with a better future. But I remember reading something by a therapist who was working with abused young people, and some of the stories that his clients were telling him were horrific. But then he went to say, but then he used this, so how did you preserve your sense of self-identity by doing that? And, you know, they said, I imagine myself somewhere else. And he talked about how disassociation even could become a strength. So I think, you know, those coping questions might also be important.
Yeah.
I think those coping questions are almost the foundation, other than what your best hopes are, but almost the foundation is essence of the solution focused practice, because without that, then the chances of it collapsing and not being consistent is quite high. And I think a lot of emphasis needs to put on the coping questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, I like to spend quite a bit of time, you know, without making it sound as if, you know, there's going to inevitable, but, you know, life gets in the way. How are you going to cope with it differently?
Yeah.
That's more suitable or beneficial to you or useful to you, depending on the client in front of you. But yeah, I agree. I think the coping questions are super important.
Is there something there about being prepared for? There are some kind of almost inevitable responses. So how would you know? You've never done this. Or, well, it's my story, not your story. Why would you want to know? And it's not having stock answers, but it's just being aware that when you set off on that journey, then these kind of things are going to come up, and how you might hope to respond.
Yeah. And I guess in reality, the only thing that we have control over is the present.
Yeah.
What do I want moving forward? How will I know it's happening? Those are all sort of basic questions. But there's the unchangeable past, which leaves a footprint. We can't deny that. But also, like you were saying. Like you were saying earlier, Brian, if it's not working, what else would you like to see? Yeah, sorry, I took it off track. It's just that I'm having personal disagreements with a certain borough in London in terms of this approach with certain people that are referred, but only because there's not this accreditation attached. And I know you were saying earlier, Brian, about when you were in Ghana looking for accreditation, and it seems in the academic world, accreditation is obviously important. And then if I'm a referrer, has this organization got accreditation? But really, at the end of the day, and I think, Gil, we've spoken about this before, it's the connection that the person has with their helper. What is that connection? And that respect, that mutual respect, regardless of accreditation. And I'm frustrated to hell, guys. But I will continue helping the clients that come to my door, because that's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've kind of, I'm losing the plot a bit, Brian. I'm losing the plot with academia. Does that make sense? Because my clients will say, do you know what? These 10 weeks I've spoke about things I haven't spoken about before. I'm starting to realize that there's things I can do, but the layer above me says, oh, has this got accreditation from this organization and that organization? And I think, actually, I don't care whether you think it has. What matters to me is what the client gets from it. But they will stop referring because of that lack of accreditation. That's what frustrates me.
And by that, Joe, you mean when they say accreditation, I mean you might use an evidence-based approach,
or something that's been accredited by Respect UK, for example. And we know, if we're honest with ourselves, we know that accreditation is a label, but the person delivering that can be a complete hopeless twat, dickhead. It doesn't matter. It matters what the client gets from it, and that's what I love about our approach, right? Is what does the organization want? What does this individual want? How will they know? Let's give them the respect to know what they need to do to move forward. So yeah, I'm sorry I went off on a tangent, but I'm going to have a fight with this local authority, and I don't know how to go about it unless I get this stamp of approval. And that's the sad thing. That's the saddest thing. Do you know what I mean, Brian?
Well,
I used to work.
You have our approval, Joe.
That's it.
Yeah, I used to work for the accrediting. I used to work for the National Accreditation Board in Ghana for different institutions, academic institutions, and I went there just to make sure to see if there were any good ideas I could nick and take back to my own place.
Yeah.
So you dropped in behind enemy lines, huh?
Yeah.
So we've got just under 10 minutes to go. So the last couple of questions from Stephen, Gil, or Joe, please. What are you positively curious to know about Brian?
Brian, what is your proudest use of solution focus?
My proudest use of solution focus, I think, was in the ACU workshops that I did, and in enabling these administrators to do these cross-functional changes. That's still the best thing that I've done, but I'm looking forward to doing some similar things, maybe in churches or in NGOs or other things like that. Yeah, so I don't want that to be a one-off.
And that's in Ghana or UK or both?
It would basically be in Ghana. The weather is too cold in the UK, and the colours are too dull.
Joe's so upset he's actually left the building. Look at that. So upset. Steve, do you want to take the mic?
I'm just kind of curious if we could, in the same way that we've got several people speaking here together, if we could bring 20-year-old Brian Jennings into the conversation, what would you be telling him, Brian?
Oh,
I love that.
14-year-old Brian. He would have been, I don't know, he would have been a bit clueless, actually. Oh, goodness.
Give him a clue.
He was at a special school because he was asthmatic in Henley-on-Thames, and he would have been searching for teenage years, so would have been searching for some direction in life. I think he would have been very surprised at the directions things would have taken, because he would have had no idea about what would have happened. I think his best, I'm trying to think, either his best hope would have been a bookshop assistant, or I think if he was reaching really high, a librarian.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he had gotten his librarian badge in his scout troop.
Wow,
amazing!
20-year-old Brian's a little bit of a show off.
Yeah.
There's an interesting piece of research. How many people wanted to be librarians when they were younger? I think it's a surprisingly high number.
And for me, Steve, I think being a librarian was because I felt like that seems quite an easy thing to do. Just sit behind and say, right, yeah, that book's over there. But
I worked in the university library as an undergrad part-time. Great part-time job in college.
Yeah.
And I from an early age, I wanted to drive a London bus.
Oh, wow.
Purely because of, do you know what? In the old days, you could sit behind the driver. There was a glass, and the driver sat in front of you.
That.
Yeah. And do you remember the indicators, Brian? They were little round things. As a kid, I thought that's brilliant. I just want to turn these indicators to go. I'm going right and left.
I remember the 105 from Southall.
Yeah. I used to get on the 38 bus, the 149. They were these are the old Route Master buses, Gil.
They were, yeah.
Yes, which were the old-fashioned London buses.
The final question is coming from me, Brian, because you are saving the best for last.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
So what are your best hopes for the near future? And how will we know when you have achieved it?
Okay, my best hopes for the near future, first to get my pension, then I don't have to be accountable to anybody. I can do whatever I like, ever crazy thing. Then what I and my wife would like to do is to set up an adult learning centre where we can use solution focus to help build the best futures for people, for groups and organizations, but with a radical edge, which is why I'm in the solution focus collective. We'll find a way to bring in Ferreri, and Miles Horton. There you go. So that's the best hopes for the future, to have this learning center, adult learning center, where there can be this free space where people can just come and have the freedom just to explore the best futures that they might have. Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a very relaxing retirement, Brian. What else would you like to do? What do you do for fun?
He'll be driving his Harley Davidson to get there.
Yes. Oh. Well.
And Steve will be like, "That's my bike."
No, I'm not allowed to use motorcycles. But anyway, that's another thing. Well, but it's fun, and then maybe I'll be doing writing. But hey, you got to do what's fun. Just sitting with something in your hand, drinking something in your hand. Where's the fun in that?
Brian, you mentioned writing. Have you written and published about your work?
I published my PhD, but then that's something that a lot of us do. I've written a small piece in the Educational Journal of Living Theories on my use of critical incidents in the teaching of ethics. Then I've written a couple of pieces with my colleague Ian Willis, one which was published in the CEDA in-house journal, and then in the academic publication. But you see, in a small institution where you're playing a number of where you've got a number of hats on, some of this falls by the wayside. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to withdraw from these different roles, so I can actually write something. And this project on solution-focused, on the virtues of solution-focused practice is really where I want to go. And coming back to something that Steve said earlier, do the clients develop virtues as well? And I think they probably do, because it's it's a way of developing practical wisdom to engage with different situations, and for that you need to develop different character strengths. So I suspect that there's something there, but I want to deal with the practitioners first.
Dealing with the practitioners first has a knock-on effect with the clients anyway, doesn't it? So that would be the right order to do it.
Yeah, because if we're aware of the strengths that we're bringing to the task, then it helps. I think that helps. It helps us understand who we are, and understanding who we are, having that tacit, that's the word, that tacit consciousness of who we are, I think helps us in the conversations when we're not thinking about who we are, but we're thinking on we're focusing on the client, but how we're responding is coming out of who we are.
Wow. You know, a large essential component of positive psychology is research on character strength.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
that's really attractive too. Yeah.
Well, this has been a very interesting and very informative and educational FBS chat this evening. Unfortunately, we have come to the end. So any last words from you guys?
I just can't believe how fast the time has gone. It's gone by so fast. It's been a great conversation and learning from you, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah. And I've just been, I'm kind of starstruck by being in this company. You know, I mean,
Brian, we are so privileged when people. You're saying you're stuck. When someone says, "Yeah, I'll do an FBS chat," we think, "Oh wow, so and so is going to come and talk to us. That's fantastic." So yeah, thank you so much, Brian, for your time this evening. Thank you to my co-hosts,
really great.
Steve, Gil. Thank you so much, Gil. We need to set up one of our date nights.
Yeah. I'm ready.
We have a date night, guys.
Yeah. We have a date night with Gil.
Long distance relationship.
And it works.
This is such a great community.
It is.
Yeah.
I think what you've just said there, Brian, is from all the chats that we've done, I often think, wow, what a beautiful, giving community it is in the sense that they're willing to share so much of their expertise and information, and it seems to be egoless almost. There's people just willing to do it for the sake of others. So that's what I think. That's why this community is so beautiful, and you're part of that. And Brian, you will have to be co-host at some point because that's the deal.
But what you've just said is one of the virtues. This unselfing that we do.
Yeah.
Oh, don't give him a big head, Brian, please.
Yeah, oh God, I have to live with her now, Brian. She'll be getting me dirty looks tomorrow.
Yeah, and Steve.
You guys have done a great job of sort of actualizing this community through the chat.
I think everyone just enjoys our arguments, our live arguments. I think that's what it is.
They are fun to watch, you know. Yes.
Steve, let me come to you. Any last words from you?
I'd just echo the idea that, you know, we've got people from disparate parts of the world with common principles and ideas, and everyone's just so bloody generous. Yeah, I think that's...
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so next week we have Catherine Mallory from the UK joining us on FBS Chat. And she is an absolute delight and we love her to bits. And for everybody other than Brian, Steve and Gil, can you guys please stay there? But for everybody else, have a lovely evening and thank you for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.